The world remembers Charlie Chaplin smiling, the small hat, the walking cane, the funny walk. People remember laughter. But almost no one remembers how that same world turned its back on him. This is not the story you learned in school. Charlie Chaplin was not born powerful. He was born into poverty, extreme poverty. His childhood was filled with hunger, fear, and instability. At one point, he was sent to a workhouse, a place designed not to help the poor, but to remind them how powerless they were. That childhood never left him. Even when he became rich, the fear stayed. Chaplin learned something early. If you make people laugh, they forgive everything else. And for a long time, that was true. When cinema was still silent, Chaplin became the loudest name on earth. His films crossed borders without language. His characters spoke to the poor and ignored. He made fun of authority. He made fun of power. He made fun of systems, and people loved him for it. By the 1920s, he was not just famous, he was untouchable. He had creative control. He owned his work. He refused studio pressure. But power always creates enemies, and Chaplin was creating the most dangerous kind. Not rivals, but governments. Chaplin was outspoken. He criticized inequality. He mocked dictators. He questioned authority. In The Great Dictator, he openly attacked fascism. As global politics shifted, fear became currency. The Cold War began, and suspicion replaced loyalty. Suddenly, powerful people started asking questions. Why does he criticize capitalism? The same fame that once protected him now made him dangerous. Investigations began quietly. Government agencies opened files on him, not because of crimes, but because of ideas. Newspapers turned hostile. Stories appeared questioning his morals and personal life, not accidents, calculated pressure. Chaplin was labeled a threat. Chaplin left the US for a film premiere in Europe, a normal trip. He expected to return home. While he was on the ship, the government made a decision. They revoked his re-entry permit. No trial, no warning, no explanation. Just like that, Chaplin was locked out of the country he helped build. His life was there. Chaplin settled in Switzerland, exile, not prison, but not home either. In the US, his films disappeared and his name slowly vanished from celebration. This was not the fall of a star, it was the removal of a voice. Technology can fade, but the truth remains. This is world affairs today. Exile did not end the pressure on Charlie Chaplin. In many ways, it intensified it. Because once a system cannot silence your voice, it attacks your character. Chaplin had always been private. That silence now became dangerous. Newspapers shifted tone, focusing on rumors about his relationships and personal life. Questions damaged reputation without requiring proof. One legal battle became especially damaging. A woman claimed Chaplin was the father of her child. Medical tests supported his denial, but the court ruled against him anyway. Headlines were louder than the truth. This case became proof, not of wrongdoing, but of unreliability. Government agencies quietly used these stories to justify their actions, painting him as a man who could not be trusted. Chaplin settled in Switzerland. Exile. In the United States, his films were rarely shown. Studios acted as if he never existed. This was not a ban on paper. It was something more effective. Silence. Chaplin continued making films, but funding became cautious and support disappeared. The man who once controlled his work now depended on others. That loss of control hurt more than exile. Behind closed doors, Chaplin struggled. He had survived poverty and fame, but rejection by the country he gave his life to cut deeper. Friends avoided him. Fear spreads faster than truth. Years passed. Public opinion began to shift. Younger audiences rediscovered his films, and historians questioned the government's actions. The same country that rejected him started feeling uncomfortable. Decades later, the United States extended an invitation, an honorary award, a recognition. Chaplin hesitated for years. Forgiveness is complicated when exile is intentional. When he finally returned in 1972, he was old and fragile. The applause was massive and emotional, as if the world was apologizing without saying the words. But applause does not erase history. It does not restore stolen years. Chaplin accepted the recognition but never returned to live there. The trust was broken permanently. This was not a victory. It was closure. The man who made the world laugh had learned something brutal. Fame can protect you only until it becomes inconvenient. This is world affairs today. By the time the world started to respect Charlie Chaplin again, he was no longer the man who had been exiled. He was older, slower, and deeply changed. Switzerland was peaceful, beautiful landscapes, quiet streets. But it was not home. Home is not a place. It is where you are accepted without conditions. Chaplin lived in a large house, surrounded by family. From the outside, it looked like a happy ending. But inside, there was distance. Not from people, from trust. He followed world events closely. He read newspapers. He watched how opinions shifted. The same voices that once attacked him now spoke about his genius. The same institutions that erased him now studied him. But recognition arriving late does not feel like justice. It feels like regret. Chaplin rarely spoke publicly about exile, not because he forgot, but because remembering required energy he no longer had. When the Academy announced they would honor him with a lifetime award, the world framed it as reconciliation. Chaplin saw it differently. He saw it as an apology that avoided responsibility. Still, he accepted, not for himself, but for history. When he walked onto that stage, the audience stood up. Applause continued for several minutes. Some people cried. It was one of the longest standing ovations ever recorded. But here is the part rarely mentioned. Chaplin did not smile much. He nodded. He absorbed the moment quietly. Because applause does not answer questions. No one asked him publicly why he was forced out. No one admitted wrongdoing. The system simply moved forward as if time had erased intent. After the ceremony, Chaplin returned to Switzerland. He never relocated, never reinvested emotionally. The door had closed long ago. In private conversations, those close to him noticed something. Chaplin had become careful, not fearful, but observant. He trusted fewer people. He spoke less about ideas. He had learned the cost of being visible. He still believed in humor, still believed in humanity, but no longer believed in systems. As his health declined, his world became smaller, fewer visitors, shorter conversations. But his mind remained sharp. He understood something painful. History does not protect individuals. It protects narratives, and narratives can be edited. By the time he passed away, headlines called him a legend, a pioneer, a genius. The exile was mentioned briefly, often without context, sometimes not at all. The world remembered the character, not the man, but the story did not end with his death. Something strange happened afterward, something unsettling. His body was stolen from its grave, not by enemies, but by criminals seeking money. Even in death, Chaplin was not left in peace. The irony is hard to ignore. A man chased by systems in life was disturbed again after death. Eventually, his remains were recovered, returned, laid to rest properly, but the symbolism remained. Charlie Chaplin was never truly left alone. HTML/HTML. Charlie Chaplin's story did not end with exile, and it did not end with applause. It ended with a lesson that the world still struggles to accept. Power does not always destroy people loudly. Sometimes it simply removes them, quietly, politely, legally. Chaplin was never jailed, never officially charged, never publicly convicted, yet he lost his country. That is how modern power works. What made Chaplin dangerous was not crime. It was influence. He reached millions without permission. He shaped opinions without asking approval, and he did it through laughter. Systems tolerate artists until artists influence thought. Once influence grows too large, control becomes necessary. Chaplin learned this the hard way, not through violence, but through exclusion. The most disturbing part of his story is not that he was exiled. It is how easily it happened. No mass protest, no accountability, no reversal. The world accepted it. Years later, the same institutions that pushed him out welcomed his legacy back. But only after his voice no longer mattered. Only after he was old. Only after he was safe. This pattern repeats throughout history. Celebrate people when they are harmless. Reject them when they are influential. Honor them when they are silent. Chaplin's return to the spotlight was carefully controlled. Awards instead of explanations. Applause instead of apologies. Because applause ends conversations. Today his films are taught, studied, admired. But rarely is the full story told. Because the full story is uncomfortable. It forces a question no system likes to answer. What happens when creativity challenges authority? Chaplin's life proves something important. Fame is not power. Visibility is not protection. And success does not guarantee safety. The same crowd that loves you can forget you. The same system that praises you can erase you. Chaplin once said that laughter was a weapon against despair. What he discovered later was that laughter also scares those in control. That is why his story matters now. Not because he was famous, but because he was removed without resistance. In a world where influence spreads faster than ever, Chaplin's exile feels familiar. Voices disappear, platforms shrink, narratives change, and most people move on. The lesson is not about Hollywood. It is about awareness. If the most loved entertainer on earth could be quietly erased, anyone can be. Charlie Chaplin made the world laugh, but his life reminds us that power does not laugh back. The final irony is painful. The man who spoke for the powerless became powerless himself. And yet, his work survived. His message survived. His silence did not erase his impact. That may be the only true victory. This was not the story of a comedian. It was the story of how systems treat voices they cannot control. And the question remains, if it happened to him, who else has it happened to that we never noticed? HTML/HTML